Through dramatic reenactments and interviews with clergy, physicians, psychologists, and gay black men, the documentary film You Are Not Alone explores the trials and tribulations of gay black men who deal with depression and, in some cases, HIV. Joining us today is the producer and creator of the documentary, Antoine Craigwell, and psychologist, Dr. Jeffrey Gardere. And it's good to see both of you. Good to have you back.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming on.
I
think I want to start with the first very basic question, and that is, why did you take this on as a project?
Some of this is my own experience. Because I've struggled with depression. And I remember back in 1999, I was about to jump off the 34th Street platform in front of the #1 train. My sister had just died. I had just lost my job, and a job that I've had for about 4 years. And looking at the total amount of my life's experiences, I didn't feel that I wanted to be here anymore. But then as the years went by and I kind of tried to survive and I kind of tried to make the best of it, keep just one day more waking up, I started listening and hearing some of my friends talking about their experiences. And as a journalist, I started trying to write an article about it. But in my research, I discovered there was nothing for black gay men. And so I decided, well, I need to write a book about this and gather all of these material together. And so I interviewed about 40 black gay men from the United States, the Caribbean, and Africa, as well as mental health professionals, including Dr. Gardere, and tried to put it all together. And I realized, hold on, I can't find a publisher, but people respond more to visual images, so why don't I do a documentary? And I did. And so some of those guys who we interviewed, we asked them, would you be willing to go in front of a camera and tell your story? And they were like, yes, of course.
Wow. And we have a little bit of a clip of your documentary,
Yes.
again, called You Are Not Alone. Let's look at it.
Not been heard. Your voice is part of your body. It needs to be connected to who you are.
It's who we be. I don't do black, I be black. I don't do male, I be male. I don't do gay, I be gay.
This is you, and this is how God made you, and this is, I believe, how God has made me.
Talk about that pain being in an anti-gay and black world.
We are not meant to be inauthentic for very long.
So I don't have to be perfect being me. I just have to be me.
Well, what are you going to do on the last day of judgment? I said, I'm going to say to Allah, Allah, get you a big popcorn, a giant soda, and let the video roll.
Dr. Gardere, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but Antoine, I want to ask you, you just made this statement before we watched that. When you asked people if they were willing to go on camera, they said yes, which I find a little bit surprising, because there has been, you know, there's a stigma in this country, and particularly in the black community, about homosexuality. So was that surprising to you that people were so willing? And what was the process like for them? Was it cathartic?
There are a couple of questions in your one question, but simply to say that, you know, there's a saying in the black community, you don't talk your business. And that is a statement that has become entrenched in the black community, born out of the days of slavery in the black community. And so it was very, at first there was some resistance, but when I explained to people what I was doing, then it's like the floodgates open and everybody wanted to come and tell their story. Because the common theme for why they wanted to tell their stories was that they want other people to know, they want other black gay men to know that they are not alone, that their experiences, what they're going through, is not confined to that person alone, that there are a number of other people who share this and have survived and get through it.
What then, though, is the connection between the sexuality and depression and being an African American? Because you talked about wanting to take your own life because there were all of these other high pressure, high stressful situations that were going on in your life, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job. But what is it about sexuality that is a factor in depression?
Well, one of the reasons that I joined the film, not just as one of the people being interviewed, but as a co-executive producer, is because I felt that in the Black community, we are still in the closet when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to homosexuality, being lesbian, being gay. And therefore, that is a lonely existence by itself when your own people deny you, or they say that they love you, but they hate the sin, which is a double message, and there's that depression there. And then you add on this whole idea of perhaps there might be an illness that's involved, HIV or hepatitis C, and then you add that on to the loneliness, not having the support from your own community, and so it makes it a horrific problem to be isolated, to be alone, and you are not alone, as this film is about. And it's just so difficult to be able to reach out because people turn their backs on that community.
I'd love to hear from both of you. Is the major contributor to the depression the isolation, or is it the stigmatization, or is it a combination of those and other things?
Well, what I've come across from my research and from in-person research as well as academic research is that the factors, the stigma, the discrimination, the homophobia causes isolation or leads to isolation. One of the things that, and I'm glad you kind of went there, because there are 5 common themes that emerged in the book, which we explain, which are elucidated in the documentary. And it's sex and sexuality, gender identity, and how a mother's acceptance of her son. Mm-hmm. We've got the effect of sexual abuse and trauma, which is prevalent in the Black community, but not particular to the Black community. We've got the role of the church and religion, where they continue to perpetuate the homophobia that causes discrimination and stigma. We've got the factors that cause someone to contract HIV, then the effect of the virus on a person, the psychological damage it does, then the further stigma that comes from being HIV positive in the Black community.
And part of that is when you are isolated in that way, you're a double minority as far as your sexuality, as far as your skin color, and not having that support. And that isolation then puts you in a mindset of what we talk about in the film, a slow suicide.
Yes.
Being involved in unprotected sex, perhaps. Doing drugs in a way that does hurt you and hurts you in a way that you can become terminally ill. So all of those things that happen to you, we put the film out there so that we want Black men to know that you are not alone, that if you have any of these issues, that you can reach out, that there is a support group. And I think Antoine did just an amazing job in just reaching out to all of these communities. And now the communities are reaching out to Antoine. They're reaching out to the film. The film has been shown in universities across the country. It's in film festivals, and the word is out there.
We've also seen a major change in attitude as well. We've seen a huge shift and change in attitude when it comes to the acceptance of same-sex relationships. I'm wondering...
Same-sex marriage, yes.
Same-sex marriage and same-sex relations. But I'm wondering, have you seen that popular change specifically within your community?
The change is taking place, and it's very gradual, it's very slow. There is still some resistance in the Black community to accepting same-sex relationships. And we haven't even got yet to accepting same-sex marriage. First of all, we got to accept same-sex relationships. We've got to have, we still have in the Black community, Black mothers who are hearing the pastors say that being in a same-sex relationship is an abomination. It's evil. It's demonic, and then coming home and alienating their own children. But what we do have is that there is a gradual progression towards acceptance. So now there are more and more Black churches that are affirming churches that say to Black gay men and Black gay women, welcome, come. Here you can find a place to belong. Here you can find a community that accepts you. And more you're seeing a gradual development of acceptance of transgender, of people, which is a wholly unexplored issue.
That's right.
The whole gender identity disorder thing that the new DSM-5 is coming out with later on this year. The whole issue of gender identity is fantastic.
But that's the important thing about this film, before we lose time on that.
Yeah.
It's not just for the black community. It's for all communities. And we want the heterosexual community, we want all of the communities to see this film, because in your family, you may have someone who wants to come out and they feel that they're not getting the support. We need to understand what is going on in our community, that we're all equal, we're all brothers and sisters, and we need to support one another. Yes, slowly but surely, as African Americans, Caribbean Americans, we're starting to move towards acceptance, but it's happening slowly, but it is happening incrementally, and this film, we hope, will push them even further towards the reality of acceptance and love. Not just tolerance, but actual love and respect.
And we are just about out of time, but I would imagine, we can't really discuss it, but I imagine also there's a role that's played about the concept of what a black man is, the issue of virility and maleness within the black community. I'm sure that pollutes the whole topic as well. It's called You Are Not Alone, written and produced by Antoine Craigwell.
No, sorry. It was produced by me, but was written and directed, the reenactments by Stanley Bennett Clay.
Great. Great, thank you for that. And you have to go back and face Stanley, so it was important that you do that. But Antoine Craigwell, thank you so much for joining us, and Dr. Jeffrey Gardere, always appreciate your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wish you the very best.